Muchachos y muchachas, and here we are, Ghislaine Maxwell trial, day 11. And I'll just say it's been weird. It's been speedy, and it just doesn't feel in depth. I don't know about you. I've been covering it since day one, and we've heard from witness accusers. We've heard from just generic witnesses, but still, it just doesn't feel like there's that meat and potatoes with the gravy sauce, you know? And so anyway, with that being said, where did we leave off? So it was a little bit bumpy towards the before the break, and we had to take a break day 1, 2, and 3 of this week because Judge Allison Nathan actually had a scheduling conflict in which she couldn't attend the trial and preside over it. But before this hiatus, there were some events, and I mentioned it in the last few videos. First of all, there was a juror that was late one day, that about 45 minutes, which is pretty much an hour, and that really sped up one day. The next day, a prosecutor got sick. We don't know what happened. They had a secret conversation in the robing room, and thus the entire day was adjourned. And then the day after that, we heard from Annie Farmer, who was one of the witness accusers. Now, like I said, this just doesn't feel like there's a lot of depthness to it, but nonetheless, details are important, and they are coming out. So today, day 11, a new witness by the name of Kimberly Espinosa, who is an alleged assistant to Jeffrey Epstein. And I also will go through some details as to why it's important to understand why these assistants are important players or important key indicators in the whole Epstein saga. And I'm actually going to pull from a previous testimony of another accuser / victim of Jeffrey Epstein. And then next is Elizabeth Loftus, who is a false memory expert. And the only reason I could even fathom that she is testifying is because maybe the defense team is trying to discredit the entirety of all the witness testimonies in regards to the jurors and their decisions. Stay right there. We're going to go through it. A new study is highlighting some important facts about our wrinkles. In this study, women were asked how their mood would change if they looked younger. 31% of these women said that they feel more confident, while 15% said they would feel more like themselves. 11% said they feel more relaxed, while 9% said they'd be happier. Our confidence is sometimes directly tied to our appearance. Unfortunately, wrinkles and sagging skin can hold us back from reaching our true happiness we deserve. This is why I highly recommend Glow with Natly. I couldn't believe how effective this rejuvenating serum really was when I first started using it. Within no time, my skin felt smoother and firmer. It's the only anti-aging serum I've ever used that truly works for me. If you want to help restoring your youthful glow, you'll love Glow with Natly. Get up to 38% off in the next 24 hours by going to glowwithnatly.com or by clicking the link below. All right, and we're back. Let's get straight into it. And like I said, I know a lot of sentiments out there are like, what's the point even? You know, it doesn't even seem in depth. But like I mentioned in the intro, these details are still coming out, and there's still things to corroborate in all this. And so they might be important later. So that's why we're going through it. Let's get to it. So this is the first recap right here. Ghislaine Maxwell's defense attorneys are scheduled to begin presenting their case to the jury Thursday after the trial broke for a 3-day period because of a scheduling conflict with the judge. In court papers filed earlier this week, which, by the way, we were on break Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, so this was during the hiatus, Maxwell's attorneys said they are hoping to call the attorneys of the 3 Maxwell accusers to question them about statements they made to federal investigators. Prosecutors in the case have urged Judge Nathan to allow the testimony, but no final decision has been made by the jurist. Prosecutors rested their case last Friday after about 2 weeks. They called 24 witnesses, including 4 accusers, who detailed alleged abuse at the hands of Maxwell and Epstein. Catch up on last week's coverage by watching my videos. You don't have to read all of it because I've done all the work for you. I've got a playlist going, so if you need to binge or you need, somebody who doesn't know much about the trial and they'd like to know, share this channel with them. All right, so let's get to some of these transcripts here. And there were some prelude conversations to the trial that, again, I just feel are important to include. So Judge Allison, and by the way, this is Matthew Russell Lee from Inner City Press. I do think that he has the best interest to report transparency, as he has the best interest to also have that transparency as well. He has been on the case of Ghislaine Maxwell, more particularly her Oceanic Foundation that she's had in cahoots with the UN, and the UN has thus denied him access or conversation. So anyway, this is the guy that I get the transcripts from. Judge Allison Nathan, who yesterday in D.C. forwarded her nomination to 2nd District Court of Appeals, takes the bench and just begins ruling on the findings that built up over the 3-day hiatus. Request for call in line amid Omicron and the flight logs still unacted on. See, he's very on the UN emphasis there. Judge Nathan says, about Dr. Loftus' testimony, the U.S. seeks to exclude 2 aspects: her testimony on leading questions and therapist techniques. I have ruled that these are generally admissible. I deny the government's motion to preclude. Maxwell's lawyer, Bobby Sternham, says, I didn't think there was a need to make this part of public record. And then continued on, Judge Nathan then says, I let a juror deliberate remotely. Then they call on the first witness, Miss Espinosa, has given us some photos of the soap opera of Jane. Continued on. Let's get to the recap. The first defense witness. Ghislaine Maxwell defense attorneys just called their first witness, Kimberly Espinosa, a one-time employee of Jeffrey Epstein. Espinosa, who was hired by the dead sex offender in 1996 and worked as an executive assistant for Maxwell, is expected to testify about her relationship with Jane. Now, remember, Jane was one of the first accusers that I believe the prosecution, or I'm sorry, that was cross-examined by the lawyers or the attorneys in this case. So, one of Maxwell's accusers. Catch up on Jane's testimony by watching the first few coverages of this trial that I have already made. Kimberly Espinosa, who worked as Ghislaine Maxwell's executive assistant from November 1996 until around 2002, told the jury she looked up to the accused madame. I highly respect Ghislaine, Espinosa testified. I looked up to her very much. Espinosa, who is 55 years old, said the British socialite was Jeffrey Epstein's property manager, and that she learned a lot from her demanding boss over the years working side by side. She denied ever seeing Maxwell or Epstein engage in inappropriate activity with underage girls. So let's actually go through some of this tea and see what she has to say. All right. Maxwell's lawyer in October of 1996, where were you living? Witness Espinosa says, I started out at the Upper East Side. Maxwell's lawyer then says, I was hired as a lawyer for Jeffrey Epstein's company. Maxwell's lawyer then says, would you recognize Miss Maxwell today? Miss Espinosa said, she's over there in what appears to be a purple or maroon sweater. Maxwell's lawyer then asks, where did you work? Miss Espinosa says, sometimes at Ghislaine's residence. Miss Espinosa then says, I think he meant they did have other personal assistants come through, like Sarah Kellen and Emmy Taylor. Maxwell's lawyer then says, did you see Sarah Kellen? Miss Espinosa then says, more towards the end. Maxwell's lawyer then asks, can you describe the layout of the office on Madison Avenue? Espinosa then says, you get off the elevator and there are restrooms. Jeffrey's office was in the corner. I sat on the left of his assistant. My office was Ghislaine's office. We shared it. Maxwell's lawyer then said, did you sign a non-disclosure agreement? And Espinosa said, yes. Espinosa then says, Ghislaine ran the properties for Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell's lawyer then asks, where did she fall in importance? And Espinosa replies, she was obviously very important to me and to Jeffrey, given his personal residences. Espinosa then says, Jeffrey acquired a Paris apartment and then an island. It was called Little St. James, but got renamed Little St. Hefts. Maxwell's lawyer said, did you assist? Espinosa said, there was construction. I furnished the house in a resort style. Espinosa continued, we shipped in sand. Maxwell's lawyer said, you shipped in sand to a tropical island? Espinosa, why does that matter? What does that matter? Espinosa then says, he wanted more sand on the beach and palm trees. We even had a fire truck and firemen on the island. What? Espinosa then continued, before Jeffrey would visit one of the residences, we would fly in the bread he liked. We did butter too. Maxwell's lawyer then says, what about Emmy Taylor? Espinosa says, she would take care of the dog and carry 𝘱𝐿𝐿𝐴n's handbag. Maxwell's lawyer then asked, did 𝘱𝐿𝐿𝐴n ever live with Jeffrey Epstein? And the witness replies, no. Maxwell's lawyer then says, what about 44 Kimberton Street in London? Espinosa says, yes, I've been there 3 years ago. Maxwell's lawyer says, do you know who owned it? Espinosa says, no. Maxwell's lawyer then says, did Jeffrey Epstein receive female visitors in his office? Espinosa said, yes. Maxwell's lawyer says, look at the document and call the person Jane. Do you recall seeing her in the office? Espinosa replies, yes. Maxwell's lawyer then says, how old did she seem? Espinosa said, 18. Seems a little convenient for me to hear that from an assistant, but I'm just saying. Maxwell's lawyer then says, do you know if Jane traveled to Mr. Epstein's plane on Mr. Epstein's planes? Espinosa said, I don't know. She moved to California to be on a soap opera. It's my favorite soap opera. I have headshots she sent me. Continued on, Maxwell's lawyer said, we want to introduce these headshots in the records under seal, at least temporarily. I have copies for the jurors. Can you read the envelope? Espinosa then says, it's from Jane to Kimberly. She pronounces her name the way it's spelled. Espinosa then says, 𝘱𝐿𝐿𝐴n and Epstein at the time were having a couple all flirty. They were behaving like a couple all flirty. It seems like 𝘱𝐿𝐿𝐴n moved on. I know she started dating. And then Assistant U.S. Attorney said, objection, lack of foundation. Judge Nathan says, sustained. Maxwell's lawyer then says, who came to visit Jeffrey Epstein at the office? Espinosa said, Gwendolyn Beck, Shelley Lewis. She was British. Maxwell's lawyer then says, moving on, when 𝘱𝐿𝐿𝐴n went to Florida, was it only Palm Beach? Espinosa said, Miami too. She had a friend there. Maxwell's lawyer then asked, do you know who Ted Waite is? Espinosa said, I learned, there's like a hair here that I don't even know where it is, but it's bugging me. Espinosa then says, I learned, Gateway co-founder. And by the way, Ghislaine Maxwell was said to allegedly date the Gateway, Gateway computers back in the 90s. She was said to date this guy, and she even bought a yacht within the time of dating him. Judge Nathan then says, we'll stop here for a mid-morning break soon, and then continued on. 𝘱𝘐𝘐, who is also a Maxwell lawyer, says, do you know if Miss Maxwell got married? Espinosa starts to answer, but Attorney USA objects. Judge Nathan says, sustained. 𝘱𝘐𝘐 says, okay, when did you have a video conference with the government about this case? Espinosa said, November 2020. 𝘱𝘐𝘐 then asks, do you know if Miss Maxwell got married? Espinosa starts to answer, but Attorney USA objects. Judge Nathan says, sustained. 𝘱𝘐𝘐 then says, okay, when did you have a video conference with the government about the case? November 2020. Why did you leave? He asks. Espinosa replies, after 9/11, I wanted to return to California. I feel like 𝘱𝐿𝐿𝐴n was a good resource for my own career. What I learned, how to handle multiple projects at one time, it helped me get to where I am today. 𝘱𝘐𝘐 then says, did you ever see Jeffrey Epstein involved with young girls? I can't believe the reply. I can't believe this reply because there's photographs, there's videographic evidence. What? Espinosa replies, no. What? Okay, continue on. 𝘱𝘐𝘐 then says, no further questions. Judge Nathan then says, cross. Attorney USA, who is the prosecution team, comes in and says, you never went to Palm Beach, right? Espinosa says, no. Attorney USA says, no further questions. I guess. Next witness, Raghu Sood. 𝘱𝘐𝘐 says, where did you live? Sood replies, East Windsor, New Jersey. I worked at Shoppers Travel since 1988. I am vice president. 𝘱𝘐𝘐 then says, was Epstein a customer? Sue says yes. 𝘱𝘏𝘪 then says, can you authenticate these travel records? Yes. Attorney USA then says, these records in RS1, they are 2006. Yes. 𝘱𝘱𝘪, no redirect. Interesting. So now we moved on to Elizabeth Loftus, who is the false memory expert, apparently. So actually, before we do that, let me get into the meat and potatoes about the assistants, okay? So, first of all, there's more to this. So, I want you to understand the severity of the assistants, okay? So apparently back in 2019, there was an Epstein victim that accused his employees of facilitating rape and sexual abuse. Now, this is Jennifer Araoz, who is, again, another Jeffrey Epstein accuser and alleged victim. The Queens woman who claimed she was raped by Jeffrey Epstein as a teen is now suing 3 of his female employees for allegedly conspiring in the sick abuse. An amended complaint filed Tuesday, and this was back in 2019. Let's get the particular month, October of 2019. A complaint filed Tuesday by Jennifer Araoz identifies maid Rosalind Fontanilla, Secretary Leslie Groff, and Executive Assistant Kimberly Espinosa. Now, again, this is an accusation. This is an allegation. So I just want to make that distinction before I go into this, especially because we are on icy grounds, and you never know when the ice is going to crack around here. So I just want to make that distinction that it is an allegation. All right. So Kimberly Espinosa is named in this lawsuit, who works for the dead pedophile in New York. All of the women Araoz claimed facilitated as well as conspired with Epstein and other co-conspirators to make possible and otherwise facilitate the sexual offenses committed against her. Araoz, now 32, said she was 14 years old when she was recruited by an unknown woman outside her Manhattan high school to meet Epstein at his East 71st Street townhouse. Upon arriving, she and the recruiter were greeted by Fontanilla, who brought them into to the secretary, Miss Groff's office to wait, according to the papers filed in Manhattan Supreme Court. Araoz said that she identified that she was Araoz said she identified that she was a freshman at the local high school in front of Groff and Fontanilla, and that she was later paid in cash by Groff for her visits to Epstein. Epstein arranged for the meetups with Araoz through Groff and Espinosa, who managed other Epstein employees, as well as 11 corporate apartments he owned in East 66th Street, the suit alleged. The filing noted that Fontanilla died in October of 2016. Araoz first sued Epstein's estate and the hedge fund manager's longtime gal pal, alleged Madame Ghislaine Maxwell, in August. Her 56-page complaint also adds a slew of other defendants by name, including Darren Indyk and Richard Kahn, the executors of Epstein's estate, and various companies linked to the financier. In previous interviews, Araoz claimed Epstein raped her during a massage at his townhouse when she was 15, and she never saw him again after the abuse. Epstein had the fatality. Espinosa did not immediately return messages. Espinosa is the witness that we just heard from in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial right now today, day 11. Espinosa did not immediately return messages. A relative of Fontanilla's declined to comment. Groff's lawyer, Michael Bachner, denied Araoz's allegations. This is what he had to say. As an executive assistant to Epstein, Leslie worked as part of a professional staff and included in-house attorneys, accountants, and office manager and other office staff. He said in a statement, Leslie's job included making appointments for Mr. Epstein as directed by him, taking his messages, and setting up high-level meetings with the CEOs, business executives, scientists, politicians, and celebrities. At no time during Leslie's employment with Epstein did she ever engage in any misconduct. All right. Just wanted to give you guys that portion of the tea. This is why This is why someone so close to Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, you would have to question, why would they not see anything going on? That was a very, like, I was like, okay, taken back by her replying no. When the attorney asked her, did you ever see Epstein with young girls? Like, there's videos, there's photographs. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, that was just astonishing to me. So another piece of tea that was apparently not reported in the transcripts and whatnot. So let's just add this in. Apparently, Jeffrey Epstein cheated on Ghislaine Maxwell with Norwegian heiress who also dated Donald Trump, buying her flowers behind the socialite's back. Former assistant testifies in sex trafficking trial. So again, we're still on Kimberly Espinosa, okay? Well, there's so many little different pieces and components that get reported at different outlets. I want to make sure we include everything. Jeffrey Epstein was dating a Norwegian heiress at the time he and Ghislaine Maxwell, the socialite's former assistant, testified as the defense kicked off its case in the alleged Madame sex trafficking trial. Taking the witness stand Thursday morning as Kimberly Espinosa, 55, who worked at Epstein's Madison Avenue office between 1996 and 2002, first was a legal assistant, and then a month into her employment, Maxwell asked her to be the executive assistant, a job she held until she left. Espinosa, wearing a black jacket, top, and trousers, described a parade of women visiting Epstein in his office, one of them being Selena Mildefart, a Norwegian heiress who also dated Donald Trump. Now, I don't know if that gives us more information about the beef between Trump and Epstein, but I don't know. Maybe there was some like resident or some sort of like, what is it, real estate beef as well. So I don't know. I don't know if this adds fuel to fire to that story, but anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. Espinosa said that she remembered ordering some flowers for Mildefart on Epstein's behalf during the early years of her employment in the 1990s. That was the time that Epstein was dating Maxwell as well, the court heard. Maxwell's defense lawyer, Christian Everdell, asked, did you get the impression there was a romantic relationship during the Epstein and Mildefart? Espinosa said, I felt like Jeffrey liked her. I felt like they were a couple. They were together, a couple. Everdell then asked, did this happen during or after the time when it appeared to you that Ghislaine was in a romantic relationship with Epstein? Espinosa said, it was at the very beginning of my employment. They could have been concurrent for a little bit of time. Everdell asked if Maxwell knew Espinosa was buying flowers for Mildefart. Despite being Maxwell's executive assistant at the time, Espinosa said no, she did not. Continued on. Asked how old the women visiting Epstein were, she said 18 and over, young women. Excuse me, what? Like this is why we corroborate with different sources to cover this trial, because what? First of all, the attorney asked her, and in the transcript, he asked her, did she ever see Jeffrey Epstein with young girls? And she said no. And then now we're hearing from a different part of the testimony transcript, how old were these women? She was like, 18 and over. How would you know? What? So are we defending Epstein as well? I thought this was a Maxwell trial. And again, I'll remind you guys that the defense team opening argument was that, you guys are just using Ghislaine Maxwell as a scapegoat for all the atrocities that Epstein committed. So, okay, stick to that argument. Why are we trying to defend Epstein in this whole saga? It's just strange. Continued on, this is what she said. We were together just about every day, she told the court. Among the women Espinosa saw was Shelley Lewis, who Espinosa said was English. Lewis said she had dated Epstein from 1999 to 2002. Other women Espinosa recalled was Gwendolyn Beck. Espinosa said Maxwell, 59, was a demanding boss, but that she had learned a lot from her. And we already heard that. And we heard all those pieces with Ted Wade and all that. Yeah. This is why we do this. Muchachos y muchachas, this is how we do this. Cover everything. Cover all the crevices and corners. Nobody escapes my coverage. Continue on. Okay. Defense calls false memory expert Elizabeth Loftus. Now testifying, Elizabeth Loftus, a psychologist and false memory expert. Loftus, a professor at the University of California, Irvine, has been called to the stand in some 300 trials since 1975. She's usually called by defense attorneys in an attempt to raise doubts about the accounts of accusers. Loftus was consulted or testified in the cases of scores of high-profile defendants, including Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson, O.J. Simpson, Robert Dust, and Ted Bundy. Interesting. So let's actually go to this. Let's go to a recap on Loftus because I want to know a little bit more about her. Ghislaine Maxwell's defense team called an expert witness on Thursday to describe the memories, as fragile and malleable and testified that they can be distorted by language, emotion, and misinformation. Oh, there's that word, misinformation. Where have we heard that before? Misinformation. Oh, it's just misinformation. All these things. Really? Questioning the reliability of the memories of 4 women who have accused Ms. Maxwell of grooming them for sexual abuse is central to the defense's case. Many of the events they described happened decades ago. The witness, Elizabeth Loftus, a professor at the University of California, Irvine, has spent decades studying what she described as the nature of memory, the workings of the memory, and false memories. She said that she had conducted hundreds of experiments on memory and determined that exposure to falsehoods can cause people to form false memories that they regard as real. They fall sway to misinformation, she said. It becomes their memory. Oh my goodness. There's like a piece of dust or hair that's like driving me crazy, like right here. Sorry. Just thought I'd like TMI you into my business right here. There's like something right here. Anyway. My goodness. So they fall sway to misinformation, she says. It becomes their memory. So you're telling me that corroborating different witness testimonies from different people, they're all wrong? All of them are wrong? This cheapens the process of justice. People like this. In my opinion, this cheapens the process of justice because it's people like this who are like, false memories, misinformation infiltrates their brains and they can't corroborate anything. Okay, let's go to the transcripts because this is irritating me. So, Loftus. Next witness, Elizabeth Loftus, who testified for Harvey Weinstein first. Her credentials, this would take a while. They give the credentials. Loftus says, I have a big CV. I have been consulted by the DOJ, the CIA. Maxwell's lawyer then says, are there experiments on emotion and its impact on the memory? Loftus said, I published one in 2008. We implanted entire flash events and measures responses. Loftus then says, I've testified in 300 trials. I've only consulted with the prosecution 5 times and testified only one for the prosecution. My research into false memory doesn't fit into their agenda. Of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. Of course it would not. Loftus then continues, Your Honor, I used the equipment to show the jurors the 3 stages. Attorney USA Pomerantz says no objection. Loftus then says the media is a source of post-event false memories contamination. Oh, cheese and crack. You know what? Cheese and crackers, lady. Cheese and crackers, lady. Like, if I have to see this one more time, the media is a source of post-event false memories and contamination. Like, this, by the way, can I let you in on something? This is how they always do it by the media. This is how they always do it. Oh, misinformation, this and that. This is how they always do it. This is how they call us crazy. This is how they call other people false and what they talk about false. It's like, just dub it a conspiracy theory and move on. And that's how they get away with a lot of things. This is something familiar to me, all right? Continued on. Loftus then says, bragging, and when I was consulting with the Secret Service, Loftus has drawn a barbell. Okay, continued on. Now, Loftus has drawn a box under the bar of the barbell and has written the word time. So I don't know if he just continued what she was going to say. Loftus braggers, and when I was consulting for the Secret Service, 𝘥𝐞𝐫𝐜, and when was that? Loftus has drawn a barbell labeled acquisition, retention, retrieval. She says people might remember something as a dumbbell. It is labeled so. I don't know what all that means. So they break for lunch. Continued on, we'll try to come to resolution before the jury comes back. Mr. Hamilton, you're going to confer on that. How to make it happen, Maxwell's lawyer says, if he's up to it. All right, so we're going to go to a new thread. Continued on after break. All right. Judge Nathan says, what else? Maxwell's lawyer says, the U.S. rebuttal expert, I'm prepared to file something if they actually call the expert. Judge Nathan says, Hamilton. Everdell says, we reached him. He can do WebEx tomorrow. Sternheim says, because of his condition, we haven't spoken. The jury is entering after break before, Loftus was continuing on her test, her self-credentials. They made a break for lunch. They enter back into the courtroom. Maxwell's lawyer says, Dr. Loftus, are you aware of image-enhancing memory distortion? Loftus says it makes people feel better about themselves. Maxwell's lawyer says, I asked you about CV, so I move into evidence to your CV. Attorney USA says, objection. Judge Nathan says, I'm allowing in Dr. Loftus' CV. Maxwell's lawyer says, what are you charging? Loftus says $600 an hour. Maxwell's lawyer says media distortion includes dramatic portrayals, right? Loftus says, oh, yes. Cross-examination. Attorney USA Pomerantz then asks, let's talk about consulting. You've done it with defense attorneys hundreds of times, right? Loftus says, probably. Oh, probably. You've only consulted with the prosecutors 5 times, right? Loftus says, right. Attorney USA says, in your book, Witness for the Defense, you wrote that you should be an advocate. Loftus says that leaves out context. Attorney USA says, you don't sit in courtroom. You weren't present for testimony on this case, right? Loftus says, I was not present in courtroom. Attorney USA then says, you are charging a defendant $600 an hour right now, correct or right? Loftus says, yes. Attorney USA, you were paid for high-profile defendants, right? Millions of dollars? Loftus says, I don't know much. Attorney USA, in 1975, you didn't charge $600 an hour, right? Loftus said, I did it for free. Attorney USA then asks, you market yourself by testifying, right? Loftus says, I don't market myself at all. Attorney USA then says, you give lists of your cases to defense attorneys, right? Loftus says, when asked, Attorney USA then says, you testified for Harvey Weinstein, right? Judge Nathan says, just a moment. Continued on. When they resume, there's no more mention of Harvey Weinstein, at least not yet. Attorney USA then says, when you testify for high-profile defendants, it brings more business, right? Loftus says, maybe. Oh, she's crafty, I tell you that. Attorney USA says, you faked photos of Bugs Bunny and Disney at Disney, right? What? You showed fake photos of Bugs Bunny at Disney, right? Loftus says yes. I don't know what episode did we enter? I don't know what this has to do with anything, but continue on. Loftus then says yes. Attorney USA then asks, Bugs Bunny is Warner Brothers, but 16% misremembered, right? Maxwell's lawyer says, I object. Judge Nathan says, you can come up. Sidebar. Lawyers return from sidebar. Loftus says, some falsely remembered touching Bugs Bunny head and him saying, what's up, doc? Attorney USA then says, there's a science museum experiment, right? Attorney USA then says, continues, and the Lost in the Mall study, 25% misremembered, right? Loftus says, correct. Attorney USA says, I'm not going to ask you to describe a rectal enema, but it's painful procedure, right? Loftus says, yes. Where are we going? What is this? Attorney USA then says this memory could not easily be implanted. Redirect. Maxwell's lawyer, there are restrictions on what kind of studies you can do, right? Attorney USA says, objection. Judge Nathan says, I'll allow it. Loftus says, we can't implant memories of sexual abuse. Next witness, Michael William Asnarin. Maxwell's lawyer says, we need a sidebar. Judge Nathan says, wait for break. Maxwell's lawyer says, where do you work? As Naren says, Customs and Border Protection, we check for incoming people. Let me just go back and just make sure there's not a recap for this. So what we just heard, the cross-examination, U.S. Attorney Pomerantz grilled the defense's expert witness, Elizabeth Loftus, a psychologist and memory expert, over the fact that she's only ever testified for the prosecution one time out of 150. She also brought up in 1991 a book by Loftus titled Witness for the Defense. Continued on. Okay, so there is no mention of this new witness. Interesting. Let's go to the witness. All right, starting over. Next witness, Michael William Azarnan. Maxwell's lawyer says, we need a sidebar. Judge Nathan says, wait for break. Where do you work? Azarnan continues, Customs and Border Protection. We check incoming people. Maxwell's lawyer, he meant. Look at the sealed exhibit GX12. Call her Jane. Did you search for this? Azarnan said, I did. Maxwell's lawyer said, and Kate and Annie Farmer, did you search for them? Azarnan said, yes, I did searches. Maxwell's lawyer says, so now we need the sidebar. Judge Nathan says, we'll get the jurors their afternoon break. Jury leaves, no mention of snacks. Judge Nathan says, Mr. Azarnan, could you step out? Attorney USA says there's 15 years of records, including outside charges time frame. Now the exhibit is going sealed. Everdell continues Q&A. Azarnan says at JFK, each of the five international terminals has a code, and it's in its report. I ran it December 14th. Everdell says, what does airline not APIS mean? Azarnan replies, APIS is Advanced Passenger Information System. Maxwell's lawyer then asks, so for Annie Farmer, you have records from 1997 to 2006. Azarnan says yes. Everdell says, and this one for Jane, you see her date of birth, right? Can I say the year? And then he says, doxing alert. Cross-examination, Attorney USA says, what are the differences between CBP record before and after 9/11? Azarnan says, the further back you go, you won't get an onboard or not onboard status. Attorney USA then says, so the ones before 9/11 were not as complete. Azarnan says, not all the time. Judge Nathan at 4:52 p.m., defense may call its next witness. It's 𝘿𝘠𝘬𝘮𝘢. Maxwell's lawyer says, where do you live and work? See, this is not anywhere. What the heck? Why is this not anywhere? Oh, actually, I think they do mention it. Okay, because I was getting a little bit, what's going on here? A former executive assistant and expert false memories were two of the first witnesses Ghislaine Maxwell's attorneys called as they began laying out the defense today. Before testimony ended around 5 p.m., Customs Border Protection also took the stand. He was asked to inspect the records of international travel of three of Maxwell's accusers, Jane, Kate, and Annie Farmer. Testimony will continue Friday morning, with the defense continuing to question 𝘿𝘠𝘬𝘮𝘢, an employee of the West Palm Beach School District. Okay, so it looks like this testimony is going to get cut short, but we're going to begin it anyway. Judge Nathan at 4:52 p.m., so 8 minutes to spare. Defense may call its next witness, 𝘿𝘠𝘬𝘮𝘢. Maxwell's lawyer asks, where did you live and work? 𝘿𝘠𝘬𝘮 responds, Palm Beach School District. I coordinate the processing of subpoenas and represent the district as records custodian. Maxwell's lawyer said, may I approach the witness with a document? Judge Nathan says, it's 5 p.m. Let's end for the day. Attorney USA said, we could just stipulate to this. Defense says remaining witnesses, Eva, Michelle, and Callie, depending on your rulings. Judge Nathan says letters due at 7:30 p.m. Defense says we might end tomorrow or Monday. Judge Nathan says closings on Monday then, charge and to the jury. So before Christmas? This is usually the point I allocute the defendant, that is, I ask they testify. Defense says let's do that tomorrow. Judge Nathan says, so we'll do the closings and charge on Monday, meaning deliberation on Tuesday, December 21st. Judge Nathan then says, so we're done. You'll get the draft charge tomorrow, with defense agreeing closings Monday. Seems clear Maxwell will not testify. Judge Nathan says letters due at 7:30 p.m. Okay, wow. What is going on here? What is going on here? I mean, we know what's going on here. You know what I mean? It's just, we know what's going on here, but it's like, like letting this all play out in front of our eyes, it's insanity. But yeah, it looks to be that they're going to try to get this all in before Christmas. This was like allocated a capacity of like 6 weeks for this trial. You understand? Like, I don't know. It's just very fast. But we still have tomorrow and apparently Monday and Tuesday. Apparently they're going to try to deliver by Tuesday. This is just so fast, so insane. Anyway, guys, that's day 11. Let me know your thoughts, comments in the comment section below. Please be sure to share this with people, especially day 1 through today. Because again, this is just insanity that we're moving so fast. It's only we're moving into week 3. It's like 2.5, and already they're ready to close. It's okay. So anyway, guys, I love you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your appreciation. There is a tip jar in the the description section below. I appreciate everything you do for me. And also, thank you for sharing this link in your Telegram, WhatsApp, Instagram, Discord chats, whatever they may be, just to get the word out. I appreciate you so much. I will catch you guys in the next episode, and especially in the next day coverage of Ghislaine Maxwell trial, day 12. I'll see you guys then.